Go outside right now. Find the nearest fence post or deck board and push your thumb into the base of it. Not a tap, a real push down into the wood at ground level. If it gives at all, if you feel even the smallest amount of softness, you have already lost that post. The wood underneath the paint is rotting, and it has been rotting for years while the surface looked fine. Now, here is the thing that should bother you. You painted that fence, you followed the instructions on the can, you bought the expensive exterior grade product, the one that promised 15 years of protection. You spent a full weekend on ladders with a brush, and somewhere between 8 and 10 years later, the wood underneath is soft enough to push your thumb into. Not because you did anything wrong, because paint was the wrong answer from the beginning, and nobody told you that. There are barns standing in the mountains of rural Japan that have never been painted. Not once. Not ever. Some of them are approaching 140 years old. The wood at the base of those structures is dark and firm. Push your thumb against it and it feels like stone. They are not standing because of luck. They are standing because the people who built them understood something about wood that the modern coatings industry does not want you to think about too carefully. The solution they used costs about $20 in materials. It takes one weekend, and it does not sit on top of the wood the way paint does. It becomes part of the wood. That is the difference you will feel the first time you run your hand across it 30 years later. Stay with me. By the end of this, you will know exactly what it is, how to mix it, and how to apply it to any exterior wood on your property this weekend. You will also know the 3 mistakes that will ruin it if you get them wrong. And one of them is not the one you would expect. Wood is not an inert material. That is the piece the paint industry depends on you not understanding. A fence post or a deck board is still moving. Not visibly, not dramatically, but constantly. Morning when the temperature rises and the humidity shifts, the wood cells expand and contract in tiny amounts, pulling moisture in and releasing it out through the grain. The Japanese call this quality ibuki, the breath of living material. And it is not a poetic description. It is a literal biological process, and it does not stop when the tree is cut and milled. The wood keeps breathing for as long as it stands. Now put a sealed film of exterior latex paint over a surface that is still doing that. What happens? Rain comes. It finds the one place the film is not perfect. An end grain cut, a nail hole, the joint where 2 boards meet. Water gets in behind the seal, and then it cannot get back out. The paint film that was supposed to protect the wood is now holding moisture against it in the dark, and rot fungi need 3 things to grow: moisture, organic material, and darkness. You have given them all 3 and sealed the door behind them. The paint companies have known this since paint existed. They have known that the end grain absorbs water faster than the face grain. They have known that any mechanical break in the film defeats the whole system. The 15-year durability claim on the can is not a lie exactly. It is a measurement of how long the paint film holds up, not how long the wood underneath holds up. Homeowner who has ever stripped a painted fence down to bare wood and found soft black rot underneath a surface that still looked presentable has learned this the hard way. That rot did not happen to you. It happened because of the paint. Walk away from it. Now, here is what the paint industry does not tell you. If sealed coatings fail wood, then every traditional culture that built durable wooden structures over centuries had to have found a different approach. And they did. The Norwegian farmsteads used pine tar. The Scandinavian fishing communities used boiled linseed oil pressed into the grain by hand in the summer heat. And in Japan, carpenters in the mountain regions of Nagano and the Kiso Valley developed a method of charring the surface of exterior wood before applying any protective wash at all. The method is called Shou Sugi Ban, which translates roughly as burned cedar board, though the principle applies to most exterior wood species, not only cedar. My father used a version of this on every outbuilding on our property in Nagano, not because he was preserving tradition for its own sake, because it worked, and he did not like replacing things. I have spent 30 years applying the same principle to American lumber, pine fence posts, pressure-treated deck framing, Douglas fir siding. And the results are the same. The wood does not rot. The treatment does not peel. And you do not repeat it every 5 years. Every week on this channel, one honest fix for your home and your yard. 30 years of methods tested by hand, nothing sold to you. If that is useful to you, subscribe, and the next one will find you. Now the formula. The proportions matter, so keep them exact. You need 4 quarts of skim milk. Not whole milk, not 2%. Skim milk because you want the casein protein without the fat. Casein is the same protein that was used in furniture glue for centuries before synthetic adhesives existed. When it mineralizes into wood fiber, it does not sit on the surface. It bonds to the cellular structure of the wood itself. The result is not a film you can scratch off. It grips the wood instead of lying on top of it. That is why it does not peel. To the 4 quarts of skim milk, you add 1 pound of hydrated lime. And I will address the lime question directly because it is the most common mistake people make with this formula. Hydrated lime is not agricultural lime. It is not quicklime. It is calcium hydroxide, sold in bags at masonry supply stores and most hardware stores for about $3 a pound. Hydrated lime raises the pH of the mixture to a level that is chemically hostile to mold, rot, fungi, and wood-boring insects. They do not adapt to it. They do not build resistance. High pH simply kills them at the cellular level. Add 1/4 cup of plain salt. The salt drives the mixture deeper into the grain during application, past the surface layer and into the interior of the wood fiber. Then, 1 tablespoon of raw linseed oil. Not boiled linseed, raw. The linseed oil adds flexibility to the cured mixture so that it continues to move with the wood as it breathes, rather than cracking as the wood expands and contracts through the seasons. Before I move on to the charring step, a comment question. What is the oldest piece of exterior wood on your property right now? Fence, barn, deck, gate, and how old do you think it is? Drop it in the comments below. I read every one. The total cost for a full batch of this mixture is about $5 in materials, and a full batch covers a standard 6-foot fence panel run. You will likely need 2 batches for an average property. Now, 3 safety points, and I will not skip them. First, hydrated lime is caustic. It will burn skin with prolonged contact and can cause permanent eye damage on direct exposure. Wear sealed goggles, not glasses, sealed goggles, and chemical-resistant gloves when mixing and applying. Long sleeves. If lime contacts your eyes, flush immediately with running water for 15 minutes and seek medical attention. This is not a substance to work with carelessly. Second, keep children and pets away from the mixing area and from treated surfaces until the wash has fully cured, which takes 24 to 48 hours depending on temperature and humidity. Third, do not exceed the linseed oil proportion, 1 tablespoon per batch. More than that slows curing and can leave a tacky surface that attracts debris. When you are finished, come back and check the wood 2 hours later. Charred wood can hold heat longer than you expect. I have never had a problem doing it this way. I would not want you to have the first one. Now, the charring step. This is the part that makes the system work in a way that nothing else replicates. Before you apply the milk lime wash, you char the surface of the wood. You use a propane torch, the kind sold at any hardware store for about $15, and you move it steadily across the wood surface, close enough to blacken the top layer but not so slow that you are burning through it. You are looking for a consistent char depth of 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. The surface will be black and slightly textured. You are not setting the wood on fire. You are converting the outermost layer of wood fiber into carbon. Carbon does not rot. Insects will not eat it. Water beads off it. It is chemically inert and biologically dead in a way that no coating can replicate. The reason Shou Sugi Ban structures in Japan have lasted through a century of winters is not preservation in the conventional sense. It is that the vulnerable organic material at the surface has been converted into something that is no longer organic. After the char, take a stiff wire brush and brush along the grain. Not against it. You are removing the loose carbon flakes and opening the texture slightly so the milk lime wash can penetrate the charred layer. Do not brush so aggressively that you remove the char itself. You want the texture to open, not the char to disappear. Then apply the milk lime wash while the wood is still warm from the charring. Using a wide natural bristle brush. Brush into the grain, not across it. The warmth helps draw the mixture in. One coat, allowed to penetrate and dry fully, then a second coat the following morning. 2 coats is the complete treatment. The casein proteins mineralize into the charred layer and bond it permanently to the underlying wood. What you end up with is a 2-layer system, a biologically inert carbon barrier at the surface and a mineral-bonded protective matrix locked into the wood beneath it. Paint sits on top of wood. This treatment is inside it. You will not reapply this in 3 years. You will not reapply it in 10 years. The treatment does not peel because it has no film to peel. It weathers slowly to a silver-gray patina that looks exactly like the old barns I described earlier. And the wood underneath that patina is protected as thoroughly on year 30 as it was on day 1. The cost comparison is worth stating plainly. A standard fence paint job costs about $200 in materials and a full weekend of labor, and you repeat it every 5 to 8 years before the rot forces a replacement. The charring torch costs $15. Used once, the milk lime batch costs about $5 per application. 1 person, 1 weekend, and the problem is solved for the life of the structure. Now the 3 mistakes that will ruin this. And the first one surprises most people. The wood must be completely dry before you begin. Not surface dry, bone dry through the full thickness of the board. If there is moisture in the grain when you char, the steam produced during charring drives out from inside the wood and pushes the char layer off rather than letting it set. Wait until you have had at least a week of dry weather. If you are working with new lumber, let it sit unstacked in a dry space for 30 days minimum before treating. The second mistake is confusing hydrated lime with other lime products. Agricultural lime is calcium carbonate. Honestly, just skip it. It will not raise pH to the level this formula requires. Quicklime is calcium oxide, which reacts with water in a way that generates heat and can cause burns on contact. Do not use it. Hydrated lime only, the bag will say calcium hydroxide or builder's lime. That is what you want. The third mistake is applying the wash in direct midday sun. The milk proteins break down too quickly in heat and direct light, and they cure on the surface before they have had time to penetrate. Apply in early morning or in shade. The wood should be cool to the touch when the wash goes on. Now, where to start? The single best first project is fence posts. Specifically, the bottom 18 inches of every post, the ground contact zone. That is where 90% of fence failure begins. Water wicks up through end grain, sits at soil level, and rot works upward from the base while the top of the post looks perfectly sound. Treat the base first. If you are replacing posts, treat the new ones before they go in the ground. The char and wash on the buried section will outlast the concrete footing around it. After fence posts, the priority order is deck ledger boards. The horizontal framing member where the deck attaches to the house, which holds water in the joint year-round, then exterior window and door trim, then full siding if you are undertaking a larger project. For existing wood that has already begun to soften, probe every board before you start. Anything that accepts a pocket knife blade without resistance is already compromised at the structural level. The treatment will not reverse rot that has begun. It will only halt rot in wood that is still sound. Replace the compromised sections first, then treat everything together. 6 months from now, go back outside. Find that same fence post. Push your thumb into the base of it. It will not move. Not because of luck, because carbon does not rot and mineralized casein does not peel. And together, they do something that no can of exterior paint has ever reliably done. They work with the way wood actually behaves instead of trying to seal it against itself. The barns in Nagano that my father pointed to when I was young were not standing because the people who built them were exceptional. They were standing because those people understood one simple thing: protect the wood in a way that lets it remain what it is. That is the protection the wood has always needed. $20 in materials, it is the last time you will have this particular problem. Next week, the same charring principle on interior beams and wood floors, and why no stain or sealant comes